Hello friends, this is Jasu Bakuhatsu, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about my experiences with the remake of La-Mulana. For those of you who are somehow just coming in on this video for some reason, right now I'm doing a playthrough series, or a let's play, I suppose you'd call it, of the original La-Mulana, that is the old freeware one that was, 8-bit styled, released back in 2005, and so yeah, I've been playing through that, having a good time with it, and in between recording sessions of that, I've also been checking out the remake of La-Mulana, just because I was interested in it. Like I said, I've been really enjoying the original La-Mulana, and I was really interested to see what they would change for the remake. How much would they change? And that kind of thing. So yeah, that's what this video is going to be. It's basically I'm just going to go over some of the major differences between the remake and the original La-Mulana, and basically just give us my general impressions and opinions of the remake and how it compares to the original based on what I've played so far. So to give a bit of context, as of this recording, I'm most of the way through my playthrough of the original La-Mulana. I've cleared 7 out of the 8 bosses in the game, or I guess 7 of the 9 bosses, since there's probably a final boss in the last area as well. And then as far as the remake goes, I'm about 3.5 hours in and have cleared the first 4 bosses. So, which is kind of funny. Those of you who've been following my playthrough of the original La-Mulana know that it took me a lot longer than 3 hours to get through the first 4 bosses. It's amazing how much faster things go when you sort of know what you're doing in these games, and to a large extent, that's sort of goes to show how similar the two games are. In that, yeah, if you've played one, you will probably be able to get through the other without much trouble. The layouts and the area maps are all pretty much exactly the same from what I've seen. So the bosses are a bit different, the puzzles are a little bit different, but in general the two games are largely similar, but with some other major differences. And as to whether those differences improve or detract from the game, they did some things that I like and some things that I didn't like to it. So let's go over those changes right now. First of all, obviously they've changed the graphics for the remake of La-Mulana, and anyone who remembers way back at the start of my Let's Play of the original La-Mulana might remember that I was kind of down on the graphical style of the remake of La-Mulana, just because I really liked the style of the original La-Mulana, and it's, how it was sort of a throwback to old 8-bit games. It did a really good job of capturing the sort of MSX, the graphical style of a lot of MSX games that I've seen before. It was a very, well-styled, good retro-looking game, whereas the new one, I don't know, I can't really justify why I thought what I did, but basically what I'm kind of getting around to is I've really warmed up to the graphics in the remake much more now that I've been actually playing through it myself. I think a large part of it is that the remake is much more well animated than the original. Because, yeah, the original had, kind of stiff animations, suitable for its graphic style, but, the remake, everything is much more smoothly animated, and it looks much nicer in motion than just sort of looking at simple screenshots can really indicate. And yes, for that reason, the more I've been playing the remake, the more I've sort of warmed up to the graphical style, to the point where I would say that I do very much prefer the graphics in the remake over the original. The biggest thing is especially, for one, the sprites look much better. They don't look much better, but they're much more nicely animated. All the enemies, the characters, the bosses especially, just have a lot more different frames of animation. It just sort of adds a lot of more vibrance and character to the whole, the enemies and the characters and all that, I feel. And yeah, but the biggest thing is the graphics for the environment, your background and foreground, and the graphics for the various objects and stuff, all the exquisitely detailed and very, very nice looking. It's just a great looking game, and I think they did a really good job updating the graphics in the remake. So in addition to that, they've sort of modernized, or not really modernized, but sort of 16-bit-ized the graphics, to coin a phrase, maybe, I don't know. In addition to that, they've sort of made some sort of updates to make it a bit more, to make the remake seem a bit more like a modern game. The original La-Mulana was kind of slavishly devoted to mimicking the style of old 8-bit MSX games in a lot of good ways, to be fair. It was very challenging, didn't tend to hold your hand, expected you to figure things out on your own, was very challenging in a lot of ways, and but it also had some of the bad aspects of old games as well, mainly especially stuff like the interface, the way you had to constantly juggle between your MSX cartridges, which you had only 2 slots for in the original, so it's like every time you wanted to check your map, you had to go into the menu and swap out an MSX cartridge. Every time you wanted to summon a fairy, all these different things you had to do. A lot of time spent fumbling around in menus. That was really unnecessary time. I mean, they could have done like a good modern interface and reduced the amount of time you have to spend fumbling around with menus, but they didn't, because they were trying to mimic the way things were in old games. Well, by the way, any slowdown that you're seeing in this video right here is purely a result of my recording software. The game actually runs, as far as I've seen, just fine if you don't try to run any sort of recording software over top of it. But anyway, so yeah, they've updated the interface, made things a lot more convenient, updated the control scheme as well. Your character, Lamaza Kosugi, he's sort of a much easier to control in the remake. His jumps, you have a bit more air control on your jumps. It's kind of restrictive, but not as much in the old game. Your attacks are much quicker and more responsive, and also you've got some more buttons to play with, which is fantastic. In the original game, you had basically just two buttons that you could, 2 action buttons basically. You could jump, or sorry, 3 buttons. You could jump, you could attack, and you had your sub-weapon button, or your item button, I guess you'd call it. And that was it. And that was a sort of a big problem with the original, is you only had 1 slot open to equip an item, which meant you could either equip a sub-weapon, or you could equip your hand scanner, or whatever other usable item you wanted, be it a shield or any of that kind of stuff. And it was really annoying, because it's like most of the time when you're exploring the ruins in the old games, you want like a sub-weapon equipped so you can have it on the ready for if something comes up and you need to use it against an enemy. But also there's tablets all over the place, so you really want to be using your hand scanner a lot as well, and it was just a constant source of irritation having to switch between your sub-weapons and your hand scanner all the time. And there was really no good reason for them to do it that way. Other than that, I guess maybe the MSX had a limit to the number of buttons you could use, or something like that. Although that's probably not the case, since you could use the function keys to open a bunch of menus. And anyways, again, another little bit of convenience they added to sort of modernize the game and make it less cumbersome to deal with. You've got 2 item slots this time. You've got a sub-weapon slot, and you've got a usable item slot. So at long last, in the remake of La-Mulana, you can have a sub-weapon equipped at the same time as your hand scanner and not have to go into the menu every single time you want to scan a tablet. Well, which is great. Frankly, a lot of things that they sort of just updated that were just straight-up problems with the original game, and just made things a lot more amicable, a lot friendlier to the player. In general, a lot of the changes that they made for the remake are very positive in that regard. They seem to have a much more player-centric design focus with the remake, and that they're trying to, make things convenient for the player and not try to aggravate them too much. Whereas in the old game, it seemed that like their very first sort of principle that they were trying to follow when designing it was to just mimic old games as closely as possible. And in that regard, they kind of didn't put as much thought as they perhaps should have into things like the design of the controls and the interface and stuff like that. So all of that is improved. And along similar lines, that is sort of in keeping with that overall philosophy that the remake seems to have of making things sort of friendlier to the player. So in the old game, you had this PDF manual that was included with the original freeware version. That was basically essential reading if you wanted to finish the game. There was information that was in the manual that you absolutely needed to know that you couldn't find anywhere inside the game. It would tell you what different items do. It would tell you essential combinations of MSX ROMs that you needed to in order to access important features. Even stuff like the basic controls, unintuitive stuff like the fact that you have to press down to enter doors and up to jump, and that kind of stuff. All of that was, basically everything you needed to know in the old game was in the PDF manual, which a lot of people ignored, and that was a source of frustration for a lot of players. The game didn't really tell you what you needed to do, or where you needed to go, or even how to play it at all, unless you read the manual. And so to that end, as far as I know, there isn't anything like that in the remake. They've taken out the PDF manual, as far as I know, and replaced it with an in-game tutorial system, which is, again, very in keeping with the whole idea of kind of modernizing the design of the game. And just briefly, so I mentioned how it was irritating to switch between MSX cartridges and have your different functions that you have to switch between all the time in the original game. In the remake, they've replaced your MSX that your character carried around, and you'd sort of access your menus that way. Instead, you've got a laptop this time, which the Mobile Super X laptop, which is kind of a cute reference that they kept in sort of the connection to the MSX, which the developers are obviously, big fans of, have a lot of love for the system. But so yeah, it was nice that they kept in that little bit of an homage to it. But now this time you've got a laptop instead of an MSX, which has memory space instead of just 2 cartridge slots. So basically, instead of having like a limited number of cartridge slots and having to swap those in and out all the time whenever you want to do different things, like you did in the old game, in the remake, you have a bunch of memory space on your laptop. You collect software instead of MSX ROMs, and yeah, you have a bunch of space on your laptop for software, and which unlocks a bunch of different functions. The first of which you get, which I'm getting around to, is you're basically the new tutorial system, essentially. The first thing that the Elder gives you is an email software where he'll send you various tips that you've probably been seeing throughout the video, where, the Elder just sends you emails, and, you can read them if you want, or ignore them. And that's essentially the game's tutorial system. The Elder tells you a lot of stuff about just sort of stuff that, frankly, stuff that the original game expected you to figure out on your own. Stuff like be sure to buy the hand scanner before you leave town, check pots for coins in order to afford it, make sure you get the shell horn to aid your trek through the ruins. Stuff that was not explicitly told to you in the original game, that you basically just kind of had to figure out on your own. And that's kind of what the Elder is here for, or what the email system is here for in this game, is to sort of lend a helping hand to players who kind of need that in video games. And it's, I don't really care for it myself. To that end, you can see how I haven't actually been reading any of the emails that the Elder's been sending in this video, just because I don't think I need them, really. Most of the stuff that he tells you is stuff that, like I said, stuff that the original game expected you to figure out on your own, stuff that isn't too hard to figure out on your own in the first place. So, for that reason, I largely ignore the email system. And in fact, since you can load and unload software from your character's computer as much as you want, if you get irritated by that little chime that pops up every time the Elder gives you a tip, you can just unload your email software in the menu and yeah, no more hints from the Elder if that's what you want to do. And that is something that I did do on my main save file that I'm playing through the game. Because, yeah, the Elder sends you a lot of frickin' emails, especially early on in the game. It seems that you get like one on every screen practically, just telling you a lot of useless information. Spikes are dangerous, don't jump on them, that kind of nonsense. Or the waterfall is dangerous, don't jump into it, which is sort of a fun moment in the original game where apparently a lot of new players try to yeah, that's something I did. Those of you who are coming here from my playthrough of the original La-Mulana, that was one of the first things I did when I picked up the original La-Mulana, was jumped into the waterfall to see what was on the other side, and I got dragged along by the current and drowned. So, yeah, stuff, and that's one of the emails that the Elder sends you in this game. He tells you not to jump in the waterfall. So, you know, if you like that kind of hand-holding bits of niceness, and like being told what to do, or given general, being told how to control the game, what the game expects of you, that kind of stuff, then that's there for you. If not, you can unload the email software and just not have to worry about it. Which is generally what I do, and probably what most people who've played the original game will want to do. Nevertheless, it's nice that it's in there and that it's optional. So again, I'd say that's another kind of basically a strict improvement to the game overall. It's a nice little gesture to help out new players who kind of need that little leg up at the start of the game to get into the swing of things, start figuring out what the game expects of you and that kind of stuff. But for veteran players or players who like to figure things out on their own, you can just shut it off, go through on your own. Fantastic bit of game design. Again, just kind of updating the game for a more modern audience. That is, an audience that isn't obsessed with the way that old games used to be and how they expected you to figure things out on your own and stuff like that. So, yeah, I get, as always, just general improvements to make the game more appealing to a broader audience. And so, there are, apart from that, I think I've gone through pretty much all of the major changes to the interface. The controls are better, the interface is better, the way that the different functions of the laptop work are better. Just a lot of overall improvements to the game that just make the game better overall, and the graphics as well, arguably. So, in addition to that, they've changed the balance of the game fairly significantly. So, first of all, they've changed the way that the experience system works slightly. In the old game, it was that the way it worked is that you'd gain experience just by killing enemies. Every time you kill an enemy, you gain some experience. And yeah, every time you kill an enemy, you gain experience. Once you fill up your experience bar, then you get a health refill. And that was sort of their way of letting you stay out in the ruins for a bit longer and not have... And... sorry, one moment. And we're back. Sorry about that. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the way experience in the original game, you kill an enemy, gain some experience. Once you fill up the experience bar, you get a health refill. Just a simple way to let you stay out in the ruins just a little bit longer. And yeah, basically, if you were careful and didn't take too much damage and killed a lot of enemies without depleting your health, you could refill your health. And that was a nice little gesture in the original game to help you, to prevent you from having to go back to town and refill your health constantly. Oh, incidentally, another bit of convenience that they added to the new game is in the old game you had to exit and reload the game whenever you wanted a health refill, which was kind of irritating. There was no way to refill your health other than to just exit the game and reload your save. Kind of stupid. In the new game, they've just added a health fount or a healing spring in town that you can go to. Another nice another nice update to make things a little bit more convenient for the player. Take out a little bit of the unnecessary busy work that the old game required of you. Anyways, so yeah, experience works a little bit differently in the remake, in that instead of just automatically gaining experience every time you kill an enemy, experience is now an item that enemies can drop. Those little green orbs that you've been seeing me collect are experience. And yeah, whenever you collect those, your experience bar fills up, fill up the bar, and as before, you get a full health refill. But in the old game, the way it worked was that the experience bar had a fixed length. So no matter how much because your maximum health would go up as the game went on, you'd pick up those little life crystals, and then your maximum health would go up every time you collected one of those. But the amount of experience required to gain to get that health refill never changed in the old game. So whether you right at the start of the game, when you have like very little health, you still need a huge amount of experience to get that health refill. So what ended up happening in the old game was that it actually got easier as you went along, because the further you get into the game, the more health you have, the easier it is to get that experience health, fill up the experience bar without running out of health. Whereas in the early parts of the game, because your health meter is so low, you'd almost never be able to fill up the experience bar to get a health refill, and you'd be constantly having to go back to town and refill your health that way. So that's been rebalanced in the remake. They've changed it up so that basically just the experience bar increases with your maximum life. So at the early parts of the game, you need very little experience to refill your health, and in the later parts of the game, basically every time you get a health refill, every time you get a maximum HP up item, your maximum experience will go up at the same time. So the game actually has sort of a proper difficulty curve this time. The further you get into the game, the harder it is to get those health refills. And at the same time, because enemies don't always drop experience, the amount of experience you get overall has been decreased. So basically what that means is, because the experience bar is so much shorter in the early parts of the game, you still get those health refills faster in the early parts of the game than you did in the original La-Mulana. But as you get later on in the game, it's a lot harder to fill up the experience bar than it was in the original game. And the overall effect of that is that you need to be a lot more careful about fighting enemies in the remake. Because in the original game, once you get past a certain number of life pickups, it becomes very easy to stay out and not ever have to worry about enemies, just because you'd be very easily filling up that experience bar without running out of health. It was just enemies were not a thing that you had to worry about in the original La-Mulana once you get like about half the life pickups in the game. And so they've changed that and rebalanced the game now so that that's no longer the case. Enemies are, especially later on in the game, it's a lot harder to fill up that experience bar, so enemies are more of a threat, and or I wouldn't really say they're more of a threat, because the Grail still works the same in this game as it did in the original. So really enemies are just more of a nuisance than they were in the original game, which is kind of something, honestly, I don't like about the remake. Like, I can see what they were going for, how in the original game enemies were not a threat at all, and you didn't have to worry at all about being careful about trying not to lose health and that kind of stuff. So it was kind of dumb that it worked that way in the original game. So they've fixed that in the remake, but the problem is that they didn't change the way the Grail works. So now it's easier for you to run out of health, since those health refills come less often, yet the enemies still aren't a threat, since you'll probably never die. Anytime you get low on health, you just go back to town and refill your health, and then replay the last bit of level from the last checkpoint, which is, frankly, just more kind of annoying than anything. Like, the combat is less aggravating than it was in the original game. The combat is, I don't know, I'll say... So the combat is more troublesome than it was in the original game, in that enemies are tougher and you have to worry more about the damage that you're actually taking. And also, along those lines as well, the traps in general in this game tend to do a lot more damage than they did in the original. In fact, there are some traps that will just kill you outright, which the original game generally didn't do. As far as I know, there weren't any traps that would just instantly kill you in the original La-Mulana. You just lose a bit of health at worst. And yeah, in the new game, enemies tend to do a bit more damage overall. Later on in the game, they've changed up some of the enemies' attack patterns, made them a bit more dangerous, made them do a bit more damage. In general, combat is more of a hassle in this game than it was in the original. But that's mitigated a bit now since the controls are better, like I mentioned earlier. But nevertheless, combat, I feel, is kind of a thing that gets in the way of the fun parts of La-Mulana, which for me the best part of La-Mulana has always been exploring the ruins and solving puzzles, sort of poking at every nook and cranny, trying to figure out where you needed to go next, reading clues, and trying to figure out how everything fits together and all that. It's yeah, that's very much the best part of La-Mulana and why I enjoyed the original game so much. And frankly, combat is just something that always got in the way of that. Those were the things that combat and also platforming challenges just kind of got in the way of that. Especially, and those were the worst parts of the original game, essentially, is anything that sort of took you out and impeded that aspect of puzzle solving and exploration. Anytime you came across like a jumping challenge that was a pain in the ass and forced you to redo large portions of the level, or anytime you came across like a difficult boss that you would get stuck on for a long time, that kind of stuff was, yeah, generally the worst parts of the original La-Mulana, because they distracted you from the good parts of the game. And the remake kind of ends up doing that even worse with the new changes to the way that enemies and combat is generally balanced. It's more of a consideration. It's something you have to worry about. You have to be careful not to run out of health and think about what you're doing when you're fighting monsters. But the overall effect of this is that you spend more time having to go back to town and refill your health and redo sections of the levels that you've already been through. And this is especially aggravating when you have to, because there's a lot of backtracking and just general traveling throughout the ruins to get to places where you need to go. And all of that also becomes a lot more aggravating as a result to the overall changes to combat and the action-based challenges. So, in general, I don't really like what they did with it. It feels like it just gets in the way of the fun parts of the game, even more so than it did in the old game, which is a bit of a shame. Although, one thing that I will say, as far as sort of the action components, the bosses, as far as I've seen so far, like I've said, I've only fought the first 4 bosses, but from what I've seen so far, the boss fights seem to be much improved in general. Not much improved. I'll say in general a bit better than they were in the old game. In the original La-Mulana, or I guess to preface this, for those of you who've been following my playthrough series of the original La-Mulana, I've been complaining a bit about like the bullshit bosses in that game and how they were just incredibly frustrating and unfair at times to fight. Basically, in retrospect, I think that was kind of an unfair criticism, just in that most of the bosses in the original La-Mulana are actually just complete pushovers and totally trivial to fight. You can get them within a few tries, and usually a successful run of them only takes like a matter of seconds. You just spam, like this first boss in the original game, they just sort of move up and down along the sides of the room, and you could just spam shurikens on one of the heads to kill it in like about 5 seconds flat. And yeah, in the new game, as far as I can tell, all of the bosses have been redone significantly, and they're a lot more fun to fight in general, I've found. Like this first boss got very simple patterns, but he speeds up the more you get him down, and it's there's a little bit more to it, and that carries over to the later boss fights I found as well. Although, like I said, I've only fought the first 4, and so, yeah, well, as far as bullshit bosses in the original game, there were 2 in particular that I thought were absolutely terrible. There was the 4th boss, Bahamut, and the 5th boss, Vi, were just absolutely aggravating and total bullshit fights in the original game. I haven't fought Vi yet in the remake, but the remade version of Bahamut is actually even more irritating than he was in the original game, which is kind of worrisome. But, yeah, other than that, though, I'm a bit worried for the future. Like, I'm afraid that if the bosses sort of continue along the trajectory of difficulty they've been going on, that bullshit bosses might end up becoming a problem in the future, with this game, with the remake. But like I said, that's only been a problem with one boss so far. Otherwise, the bosses in general are much more improved. They're more challenging, but you know, in a fair way. They maintain the strengths of the boss fights in the original game as well. They still have the same basic concepts and the same basic designs, which were really awesome in the original, and they only look better now in the remake. So overall, that's overall, I'd say, an improvement based on what I've seen so far, as the boss fights are overall somewhat better in the new game than they were in the old. But, although, yeah, I must say that one bullshit fight against Bahamut was really aggravating, and kind of made me lose faith in the game a little bit, and I'm really not looking forward to see what they did with Vi. Although, from what I hear, he's actually not as bad as he was in the original. I'll maybe give you guys an update on that if I, at some point in the main series, if I ever get that far. But yeah, overall, bosses better, general combat with enemies in the ruins, not so much. Kind of aggravating, kind of gets in the way of the fun stuff. And along similar lines, they've changed the way that your limited resources are balanced in this game as well. In the original La-Mulana, you had very easy, infinite sources of money and ammunition and weights and stuff like that. Basically, yeah, there were some pots scattered throughout the ruins that would contain items. You'd find like either 10 coins or some subweapon ammo or something like that inside certain pots. And when you'd exit and reload the game, all of those pots would be refilled, which was kind of ridiculous. It made it so that basically, yeah, every time you reload the game, you end up getting a big influx of just consumable resources. Any sort of resources that you need. The coins, the sub-weapons, all of that. And the overall effect of that is that you basically have all of the coins and sub-weapons and weights that you need in the original game. It's limited resources is never a thing that you have to contend with in the original La-Mulana, and if you somehow do at any point, it's very easy to just go farm them up in a pot somewhere. And that's been changed with the remake. And sort of like I was saying with the changes to combat, it makes a little bit more sense the way they did it this time. Like, it was kind of dumb in the original game, how it's just, you've got, like, money that you need to buy things, weights that you need to unlock certain things in the ruins, and sub-weapon ammo that you should, in theory, conserve. But none of that mattered in the original, because you always had as much as you needed. It was very, very easy to get all of the coins and ammo that you want. And, yeah, so limited resources was never a thing that you had to contend with in the original La-Mulana, which was dumb, but not really anything I'd complain about too much. It was just kind of a weird thing about that game. In the remake, that's been changed. You can no longer farm infinitely for items in pots, and which makes sense. And but so yeah, like I said, it makes sense that they do it that way, and as a result, your overall resource collection rate is much more limited. Weights are much more difficult to come by, to the point where you actually often have to go back to town to buy more, just because you're constantly running out of weights, since there are so many pedestals all over the ruins that you need to activate using weights. So yeah, you run out of weights a lot more often. Because the enemies are more threatening, you have to use sub-weapons a lot more, so you end up running out of sub-weapons a lot more frequently as well, which is also... And again, all of these things mean that you have to be spending your money a lot more often than you did in the original game. Because yeah, consumable resources, you often run out and have to go and buy more, which was not the case in the original game. And so, what do I think about that? I mean, like I said, it makes sense that they do it that way. But for the same reason that I disliked the changes to the combat, I don't think that this really works to the game's benefit, because again, it just adds another bit of aggravation. It's just, yeah, in the original game, because of all that stuff I was talking about, how combat was not an issue, limited resources were not an issue, so there was seldom anything in the way of you and the puzzle solving and the exploration. You could just run around the ruins freely, minus the occasional bullshit jumping challenge. You could basically just run around unhindered anywhere that you wanted without much trouble. Whereas in the remake, you spend a lot more time having to go back to town and refill on either health or sub-weapon ammo, or most of the time weights is an especially limited resource in the remake. Now, to compensate for that, there are more coin drops overall in the remake. There are more pots that drop coins. There are some new treasure chests that they added that drop a whole bunch of coins. So you end up getting a lot more money overall. But and you still need to. There are still essential items that you need to buy. But yeah, you need to be spending that extra money that you're getting on stuff like on your consumable items, those weights and that sub-weapon ammo. And again, kind of aggravating, to be honest, that ends up being the case. It's just another thing that sends you back to town occasionally and forces you to replay parts of the ruins and gets in the way of the fun parts of the game. That's stuff that it is no longer the case that you can just run around as much as you want unhindered by stuff like running out of health or resources like you could in the original. In the new game, yeah, you very often run out of health and resources and have to go back and buy them and then replay a bunch of stuff. And that's just kind of aggravating. And yeah, it gets in the way of the fun parts of the game. Now, as far as the fun parts of the game go, the puzzle solving and the exploration, those have been changed a little bit as well. In general, the puzzles have been watered down a fair bit. Overall, I'd say they've been watered down. Some of the puzzles have been remixed slightly. There are some puzzles that are more difficult in the remake. Like there are some trivial puzzles in the original game that have been sort of punched up in the or some puzzles that were trivial in the original that were sort of punched up in the remake. The 4 chests in the Temple of Moonlight, which used to be just a simple puzzle contained on one screen. You just put weights on the pedestals in the correct order and it opens up a chest. In the remake, that's been like a completely new puzzle where you've got to like find basically hidden pedestals all over the place to activate the different chests, and it's been made a fair bit more complicated. Also, the locations of certain items have been sort of rearranged a bit as well. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah, before I go into the items being sort of relocated, as far as the puzzles go, yeah, so some puzzles have been made a bit more complicated, but in general, most of them have been made simpler. Now, in some cases, that was a good thing, because some of the puzzles in the original were a bit too obscure. The clues wouldn't really give you would give you an extremely vague idea of what they expected of you, which was kind of the fun of it a lot of times, was trying to figure out what the clues were trying to tell you. Sort of come up with a bunch of different things that could mean, trying out different hypotheses, trying to figure out how things all fit together in the end. But in some cases, it was just kind of bullshit. Clues would lead you astray and give you sort of the wrong idea of what you needed to do. A perfect example of that is there's a puzzle in the first area in the original game where you've got some statues of a sword and... Yeah, you've got a sword, a shield, a helmet, and armor that are right outside the entrance to the Mausoleum of the Giants. And you've got the clue that you get tells you to do something along the lines of take the sword, take the shield, crush the helmet, crush the armor, which makes it sound more like a more complicated puzzle than it is. So what the puzzle solution actually is that you just need to destroy those things in the order that it tells you. But because the clue uses those 2 different verbs, it says to, take 2 and crush the others. It makes it seem like you need to do something different with, it makes it seem like you need to do 2 different things, whereas all you really need to do is destroy them in the correct order. So the puzzle clue kind of led you astray in that regard and made the puzzle seem more complicated than it really was. And there were some other examples of that in the original game as well. But and in general, those kinds of puzzles have been fixed for the remake. So, for example, that puzzle I was just talking about has been changed. So they've changed the theming of the puzzle. So instead of a set of like a sword and armor and stuff, instead it's now the age of flood and fire and blood and all that. And the clue has been changed so that instead of using a bunch of different verbs and confusing the player like that. It just explicitly tells you, this is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one. It pretty much, like, it doesn't go outright and say, destroy these things in this order, but the clue heavily suggests that this is an ordering puzzle that you're dealing with here. So in general, the clue, and that's basically what most of the puzzles have been changed to, is the clues have been made, excuse me, much more obvious. And in some cases, that ended up fixing puzzles that were too obscure in the first place, but it also has sort of taken out a lot of the fun of figuring out some of the puzzles that you know, like I said, a lot of the fun of the original game, at least for me, was that it had really good puzzles that were really well they were really well balanced puzzles, I thought, in that the clues were like sort of obscure, so that they didn't tell you exactly what you needed to do. There were like a lot of different ways they could be interpreted, but that was sort of the fun, was trying to come up with a bunch of different interpretations of those clues, trying out different things, and yeah, having to think hard about what they might expect of you. Whereas there's a lot less of that in the remake. In the remake, it's almost always, at least as far as I've seen so far, like I said, I've basically fully cleared the first 4 areas and done a fair bit of stuff in the others as well. And so most of the puzzles have been changed to be a lot more obvious, which is overall is a bit of a shame. It takes out some of that fun I was talking about of figuring out the puzzles. It's also fixed some of the bullshit puzzles, but again, taken out some of the fun at the same time. It seems that that's sort of the way a lot of things tend to work in the remake. It's like a few steps forward and a few steps back. It's like the limited resource, it's like combat is no longer pointless, but it's now kind of aggravating. Bosses are mostly improved, but some of them are worse. And that kind of stuff. And it's kind of disappointing overall. And yeah, overall I would say that the puzzle solving is not as fun as it was in the original game. Some people are going to prefer it. Like, I know a lot of people out there complained that the puzzle clues were too obscure in the original game. Personally, I thought they were perfect. They required a lot of thought. You'd have to have a lot of different theories about how to apply different clues, and it was... but yeah, like I said, that was what made it so enjoyable, for me at least. Some people didn't like that, but for me, I don't like the way they watered down the puzzles in the remake. And additionally, the exploration, which is the other big fun part of La-Mulana. So, yeah, like I said, the overall layout of the maps is pretty much exactly the same in the remake as it was in the original, but the placement of items has been changed a little bit. Some items you collect in sort of a different order. Some items are... so, yeah, in the original game, things were largely open-ended. There was sort of... you had to do certain things in order, like there was a sequence where you need the ice cape to get the climbing gloves, and you need the climbing gloves to get the serpent staff, which you need to get the double jump feather. So there were sequences like that where you had to collect items in a certain order, and but in general, the original game was very open-ended. You'd always have a lot of different places you could explore at a given time. Like, and actually, there were at times I sort of complained about that, or it might have seemed like I was complaining about that in the original game. How you always have so many different options available to you at a given time, so many different areas to explore, so many different puzzles to solve, so many sort of different threads to follow at a given time. And yeah, it could be overwhelming at times in the original game, but that was a lot of the fun of it, again, was, yeah, at least for me, I really enjoy that sensation of just having so many options that I don't even know what to do next. That's just a really good feeling, and it's so rare to get that in a game that it's really refreshing when I do come across a game like that. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the original game, and So I am happy to say that they've enhanced that particular aspect of the game for the remake. The way that the items have been rearranged is in general, so that there is less ordering overall. And items can be collected in general there's less of a preset order that you need to do things in. For example, the biggest example of this is the bronze mirror, which was the item in the original game that you needed to open up the backside of each area, which basically opened up like a whole nother set of areas and give you like a whole ton of new options for exploration. And so in the original game, you needed to clear out all of Area 3 in order to get that. You needed to clear the third boss, and to do that, you'd have to clear all of Area 3, and then that would get you your bronze mirror. And in the remake, for example, the bronze mirror is no longer hidden behind the third boss. There's just a simple puzzle that you need to clear in Area 3, or there's a puzzle you do in Area 4, and then that opens up something in Area 3, and then you get the bronze mirror, and then you get a bunch of new stuff to explore. Another example, in Area 6, I think it was, the Twin Labyrinths. In the original game, you basically you could get like to a very small portion of the Twin Labyrinths in the original game, but there wasn't really anything useful you could do there. You needed to collect the Twin Doll in order to unlock the Twin Labyrinths for exploration, and that's been changed. And the Twin Doll was an item that you get like way later in the game. There's a bunch of stuff that you had to do to access that. And in the remake, that's no longer the case. You still need the Twin Doll in order to fully clear the Twin Labyrinths and collect some of the items, but in the remake, the Twin Labyrinths are almost fully explorable right off the bat, and there are some good and helpful items you can get there. So, yeah, like I said, in general, the remake of La-Mulana is even more open-ended and gives you even more options as to what order you can do things in, and that's pretty fantastic, in my opinion. It's not completely like that. Like, for example, the Confusion Gate is a bit more locked off than it was previously, but overall, things are much more open-ended in the remake, and that's a really cool thing. I really like that they did that. So, yeah, that's kind of a good thing. And I think that's pretty much everything. So what is my overall opinion? Overall, I have to say I don't really like the remake of La-Mulana as much as the original. Mainly for the fact that, yeah, they watered down the puzzles too much, and between the combat and the limited resources, there's just a lot more things this time around getting in the way of those fun parts of the game. And the fun parts of the game have been, unfortunately, watered down a little bit as a result of the simplified puzzles. Although, with that said, it is kind of hard to go back to the original La-Mulana now that I've been kind of spoiled on all of the improvements that they made as far as the interface and how much easier things are to do. General improvements to the interface and the controls and that kind of stuff. It makes it kind of hard to go back, but it's not really enough to make up for some of the losses in fun, I feel. And some of the increased aggravation as well, as far as combat and limited resources. So, overall, and I have to say, it's a very slight preference, and it's probably strongly biased as well, just because the original was the one that I played first. And like I said, the puzzles have been remixed slightly, the items you collect in a slightly different order. There are some different things in the remake. Things have been changed around a little bit, but in general, it's largely the same game, so it really doesn't have the same magic playing through this that I sort of experienced my first time through the game. So I feel I'm probably a fair bit biased in that regard. But nevertheless, it is still my opinion that I enjoy the original game a bit more, and I feel that for people who enjoy the puzzle, especially for people who enjoy the puzzle-solving aspect of the game, will probably prefer the original, whereas people who couldn't get past the sort of archaic parts of the sort of inconvenient stuff as far as the interface and the controls are concerned, people who couldn't get past that stuff in the original will probably prefer the remake. People who didn't like the sort of dull or sort of pointless nature of combat, or the lack of challenge as far as combat goes. People who didn't like that in the original will probably also prefer the remake, in that, yeah, being careful about enemies is actually a thing in the remake. I didn't like it because it got in the way of the puzzle solving and exploration, but other people might like it. It's largely a matter of preference. Like I said, a few steps forward, a few steps back. On the balance, I prefer the original. Graphics as well, kind of a subjective preference. Some people will prefer the old 8-bit style. I used to, although now that I've seen the remake in motion and had a lot of hands-on experience with it, I prefer the new graphics, especially the backgrounds and the graphics for the different areas. They just look absolutely fantastic. The original game had really good graphics too, but I kind of prefer the remake in that regard. Although I have to say, actually, I haven't talked about the music. All of the music has been actually redone for the remake, and I have to say I am generally not a big fan of what they did with the music in the remake. And the reason for that is I feel that there's a bit less variety in the way that the different tunes sound. It's like the basic compositions are the same. It's just that everything's been rearranged a fair bit. Or, yeah, they've got re-instrumentation and arrangements of the old tunes. Which, and yeah, the new ones tend to use they all tend to have kind of the same tone, the sort of upbeat, energetic kind of tunes, whereas the original had a bit more variety. And in the original game, I felt that the music was much better suited to the different areas. The best example of this is the changes that they made to the background music for the Mausoleum of the Giants. In the original game, the track for the Mausoleum of the Giants had it was one of my favorite tracks in the game. It had a very sort of somber, almost mournful tone to it, and which was appropriate to the area. It's like, you know, this is the Mausoleum of the Giants, and their tragic tale is told within, that kind of stuff. And you lose a bit of that in the remake. In fact, in the remake, they've jazzed it up. It's like this now. It's like this little sort of peppy, upbeat, jazzy kind of number. They added sort of a swing feel to it, which really doesn't suit the area, I feel. And it gives it kind of the same peppy, upbeat flavor as pretty much all of the other tracks in this game. So, yeah, in general, I'm not a fan of the changes to the music in this game. So I guess aesthetically, as with all of the other changes, it's kind of a couple steps forward and a couple steps back, as with everything else. I like the new graphics, don't like the new music so much, although I do like the sound design of the new game. The sound effects are very nice. Especially, I love the whip crack that you get every time you crack the whip. I just love that sound effect. And yes, the sound effects in general are very well done, I think. I love the sound design. Music, not so much. And so yeah, I guess that was probably something I could have talked about earlier, back when I was talking about aesthetics. But yeah, at long last, that is pretty much everything I have to say about the remake of La-Mulana. Oh yeah, one other thing that I thought was really awesome, sort of along the lines of convenience and concessions to modern game design. Those of you who followed my original LP of the original La-Mulana might remember that I spent a lot of time consulting my notepad. I wrote down a lot of clues on just a physical pad of paper that I kept next to me, and I'd be constantly referring back to that to try and connect all the clues together. And that's actually built into the game this time. There's a very nice piece of software you get later on in the game that lets you, just with the press of a button, you can record any hint that you get from either a tablet or an NPC or anything like that, and you can go back and refer to that in the menu anytime, and that's a fantastic feature. Just another bit of excellent added convenience that they makes the new game a bit friendlier, a bit easier to play through than the original. So yeah, there was that as well. Oh yeah, one other thing, or was I talking about? I feel like I was talking. Sorry, I feel like I was talking about something else before I got on the tangent about the text tracker. Oh well, probably nothing important. Anyways, there's one more small change that they made to the game. They added a new character to the game. In the original game, had pretty much nothing in terms of like characterization. You talk to the Elder sometimes, and he'd have sort of funny and silly things to say to you occasionally, and occasionally useful advice and essential items. They've added a new character along those lines, a sort of advice and hint-giving character named Mulbrook. Who's this, this girl that you meet in the Temple of the Sun. And kind of baffling that they felt the need to include her, really. It's got kind of a pointless addition, in a sense. It's like she performs basically the same function that the Elder did in the original game, although it's really essential that you talk to her at certain times, because some of the hints that she gives you are things that are not at all clued otherwise. For example, there's a platform in the Twin Labyrinths, a moving platform that you need to activate by falling on it from a high height. You need to go like a couple screens above and fall down on it, and that sort of unsticks the platform and starts it moving again. And there's not really any sort of indication that that's the puzzle solution at all. The only hint you get is that Mulbrook tells you at some point that that's how it works, and that's what you need to do to solve that puzzle. And most of her hints are along those lines. So basically, sort of a very small annoyance. It's kind of one of those other things that kind of gets in the way of the exploration, is that occasionally, if you can't find the way forward, often the way forward is just an essential hint that you need, or an essential item or something that you'll need from Mulbrook. And that's kind of a small nuisance, but not really a huge deal. And I can kind of see what they did. Basically, it's kind of obvious that they felt the need to include sort of a cute anime girl, basically, in the game as part of the promotional material. And that character does, in fact, feature quite heavily in the sort of promotional materials and artwork for the game. I don't really have a problem with that. It's kind of disappointing and cynical in a certain sense that they felt the need to, just include a cute anime girl for that reason alone. But I can see why they did it, and it's not a huge deal. And hey, if it gets a few people out there to give the game a look who might not have paid attention to it otherwise, I'm all for it. And it's not like she's like a terribly annoying character or anything either. I just don't like how the game kind of forces you to talk to her occasionally in order to solve certain puzzles. As far as the character herself goes, she's fine. Her dialogue is kind of amusing at times. I just thought that was kind of an amusing observation that they, basically, added a girl to the game for marketing purposes, and that was kind of funny. Sort of seems that they're going along similar lines with the sequel, but again, I don't really mind. So the new Kosugi and that you control in the new game is a girl. That's fine. That's about all I have to say with that. I just thought it was kind of an amusing note that they sort of went that route as sort of a tactic to sell their game with the remake. Like I said, much more player-centric experience. They obviously care about actually selling their game this time, whereas in the original, you could tell that they sort of had a we're just gonna make what we like and damn what the audience thinks kind of approach with the original game. Whereas, so I guess along those lines, what does all of this mean for this? I think I said remake when I meant sequel. Yeah, they added a female. The new main character for the sequel, La-Mulana 2, is going to be a girl. I just resorted back to my little trope of, or my little joke of calling the main character La-Mulana. So let's continue with it. Yeah, the main character in the sequel is going to be La-Mulana's daughter, which is to say, Lamaza Kosugi's daughter. At least as far as I can tell off the Kickstarter page. So what else is there to say about the sequel? Sort of my hopes. Basically, from what it seems that it's going to be very similar in style to the remake of the original game, which is fine. I can understand. You know, like I said, they need to sell their game, so it's fine that they went that route. It's understandable. But as far as improvements that I'd like to see, like I said, I don't really like how they watered down the puzzles, and I'd really like to see a bit of a return to form in that regard, with more difficult puzzles with more ambiguous clues, like stuff like this, the logic puzzle with the 6 deuses in the confusion gate in the original game, for example. That puzzle's been completely removed in the remake and replaced with just a simple ordering puzzle, where the weights, the pedestals sink down into the ground, and you've got to place weights on them before they all sink down. It's very simple this time. I'd like to see more complicated puzzles along those lines. Stuff that actually takes a lot of thought to try and figure out. Stuff with more ambiguous clues that, again, just require you to think more about what it is that need to be done. I don't like how the puzzle clues in the remake were all kind of extremely obvious and made it very clear what you needed to do. And I hope that they'll return more to the style of the puzzles in the original La-Mulana in that regard. What else would I like to see? They need to do something with combat. It makes sense that they made it more of a thing in the remake, but it ends up being just kind of an aggravation. It's just like you run out of health, and so you have to go back to town and refill your health and teleport back into the ruins and replay a bunch of stuff. Kind of a pointless nuisance rather than an actual challenge. I don't know what exactly it is they should do, but they need to do something. Either make it a threat or make it not an issue at all. I could maybe go in... That's probably worth its own video, really. But yeah, neither the remake nor the original really satisfy me as far as action-based challenges go. So I'd like to see something done about that with the remake, but I'm not sure... not with the remake, with the sequel. But I'm not sure exactly what. With the original, they sort of went too far in the direction of things are completely trivial and not even an issue. Like I said, absolutely nothing getting in the way of you and exploring the ruins and solving puzzles. In the remake, the opposite problem, where it's just a bit too much of a hassle. Although, to be clear, there's a new thing in the remake where there was a tablet in the Mausoleum of the Giants in the original game where you just read it twice, and then it would... Basically, some new enemies would spawn in that area, and it was like not even a big deal at all, really. Whereas in the remake, they actually turned that into sort of the trigger for the hard mode for the entire game. It's you read that tablet twice, and then a whole bunch of new enemies spawn everywhere throughout the entire game, and it makes the whole game a lot more challenging. And I ended up triggering that by accident without realizing what I had done on my current main playthrough of this game. So that's definitely a factor in sort of my overall valuation, although I feel I'll probably restart the game at some point and try to do a full clear on like regular mode, because hard mode is just a huge pain in the ass in my opinion. But even otherwise, though, because of the changes to the experience system, combat is definitely more of a hassle in the remake than it was in the original, which is something, again, too far in the other direction. They need to do something with it, but I'm not sure what just yet. That's for them to figure out. But, what else would I like to see in the remake? I mean, frankly, not the remake, the sequel. Frankly, I'm pretty much happy just with having more La-Mulana in general. The remake is nice, things are a little bit different, it's kind of like re-experiencing the game again for the first time, but not really, because, like I said, everything is broadly the same, so it'll be good enough just to have like a new map and like a new proper game to go through. It's more La-Mulana, and that's just perfectly fine by me. I'm super excited, I hope it turns out awesome, and that's basically what my thoughts on the sequel. I'd like to see more emphasis on puzzle solving and exploration, and probably less emphasis on combat and action-based challenges. Or if they do want to make that a thing that they put more emphasis on, they need to do it in some way so that it doesn't become too aggravating and distract too much from the exploration and the puzzle solving. Because as it is in the remake, the constant threat of enemies sapping down your health is just more of a nuisance than anything, and it especially makes backtracking through the areas a huge pain in the ass. And yeah, so yeah, finally at long last. Oh, this did not end up being a short video at all, but yeah, at long last, that's pretty much everything I have to say about the remake of La-Mulana and my sort of hopes and thoughts about the sequel. And yeah, once again, they're doing a Kickstarter project for La-Mulana 2, there'll be a link to that in the description. By all means, check that out if you're interested, and yeah, give them your support, again, if you're interested, or if you have the cash to spare, which there's a good chance that you do, and that you are interested if you're watching this video. And yeah, with that, thank you all for watching. Sorry that this went on for so long, and yeah, if you're coming here without having seen my main LP series of the original La-Mulana, by all means, go ahead and check that out if that might be something you're interested in, and if you enjoy my style of commentary and my opinions on things and whatnot, yeah, by all means, check out the original playthrough series. For those who have been following that already, yeah, thanks for your continued support, and with that, I'm out. Thanks for watching, and we now return you to your regularly scheduled La-Mulana LP.